Motion by Alder Scannell, second by Alder Burnett. Any changes there? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, we'll go on to regular business. Everything tonight that we do is a recommendation to council, which will be next Tuesday at 6 o'clock. Not that we aren't always right? And number 1 is consideration and possible action on request by resident at 1604 Hillcrest Drive to extend the payback period and waive the interest for the water assessments associated with the Hillcrest Drive reconstruction project. 14th. Would like it, Director, is that right, Jesse? Alder Burnett?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
At our last meeting, Assistant Attorney Mathler identified that under ordinance, one of the items that needs to be satisfied to allow for the assessment to be extended out to a maximum of 10 years is a demonstration of hardship on behalf of the applicant. Over the past 2 weeks, we have not heard anything from the applicant, so we have not yet received that demonstration or any documentation indicating what type of hardship the applicant has. So staff would recommend that this be held for 2 weeks so we can try to establish contact with the resident so he can make that demonstration, and then the council would have that documentation to review.
All right, Alder Burnett?
Yeah, I support that. In fact, Director Grenier, I noticed he must have left me a message right before the Parks meeting. I have not listened to it. So I want to help and I want to help, but I think my role is to get him connected to staff.
Absolutely.
And that's what, and so I agree. A motion to hold would be appropriate. So
Second.
All right, there's a motion, Burnett, second by Alder Scannell to hold item 1 until our next meeting. Any discussion on that? All right, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That item carries. Number 2, consideration with possible action to complete the sidewalk study and estimate the cost of installation. Estimate the cost, cost of installation on request on the east side of North Irwin Avenue from St. Clair Street to the East River. This is referred from March 10th. Director?
Okay, this was referred to staff for study. So in the packet, we've included a memo that was prepared by Dave Hansen, the traffic engineer. Dave has summarized the situation over there, indicating that there appears to be a remnant of an old historic sidewalk on the first property north of St. Clair on the east side of Irwin, but it has been many, many years that sidewalk has been in disrepair, and there are just little pieces of concrete buried in the grass over there now. North Irwin Avenue between St. Clair and the East River is an unimproved street. It's largely gravel and has not been graded out for an improved surface. So one of the things that Mr. Hansen has recommended is that, given the situation with the road being in the condition that it's in, if we were simply to retrofit sidewalks in at this time, there's a good probability that the sidewalks would quickly fall into disrepair, because water rolling off of the street has no curb and gutter. There's no stormwater out there for to manage that, and the water would pond on the sidewalks, and through freeze thaw action, we would have some issues out there. So the very short executive summary that I can give to you, although the ordinance calls for roads such as this to have sidewalk on one, preferably both sides, the recommendation from staff would be to order the sidewalks installed on the east side or possibly both sides at such time that that block of North Irwin Avenue is reconstructed or improved. I can tell you that at this point in time, that block is not on our radar. However, we do go back, and this is a road rating year. So staff is out right now doing the PASER ratings on all the road segments within the city of Green Bay. And we oftentimes do take those revised ratings under consideration when recommending changes to the 5-year capital program. And we can definitely revisit this block to see if improvements to the road surface are warranted at some point here within the next 5 years. And then again, if the recommendation is followed, sidewalks would be installed at that time.
All right, thanks. Questions from the committee?
So would you recommend holding or just receiving it, placing on file, and this would come back at the appropriate time, or?
Receive and place on file the report.
Motion to receive and place on file the report.
Second.
There's a request by, or a motion by Elder Scannell, second by Elder Gerlach to receive and place on file the report. Any discussion under that? Steve, did this initially come from Alder Galvin or was this from the resident?
It was from through Alder Galvin from the resident. So we can definitely communicate with Alder Galvin to let him know what happened at committee tonight.
Further discussion on this item? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 3, consideration with possible action on how the city of Green Bay can achieve an annual 3% replacement rate of its roads. The action plan would include anticipated increased borrowing requests. Alder Weary, as someone who's been on behind us, I'm sure everybody, we've been talking about this for a lot of years. Steve, I know we talked to you quite a bit, and I know it involves all those other parts that we've talked about. And I know Nancy, Director Quirk, down here as well. And we exchanged emails earlier this week to see what we can do since we're right now planning for our future on everything. Steve?
So Assistant Director Burnett took this on, and what we did is took a look at our some average annual costing and what our current baseline is. Our current baseline is about 32,000 linear feet of roadway. That is about 1.35% of our total roads. Now, bear in mind, that's kind of an inflated figure or kind of a deflated figure because that was calculated off of 457.57 centerline miles of roadway in the city. That number includes the connecting highways and some other roadways that are county highways not under our jurisdiction. So I apologize. I don't have the roadway statistics in front of me right now.
I thought when we discussed this last fall that we were at like 2%, or a little over 2, like 2.1 or 2, something like that.
Yeah, and again, I don't necessarily have the numbers, but
Okay.
Jim calced it based off of gross road miles.
We'll keep
So
that in mind. Okay.
in order to extend up based on the gross miles, we would have to increase by an additional 126% of what we're currently doing. We are currently completing about $10 million a year in pavement, $5 million a year in sanitary, $11.3 million in storm, and about $4 million a year in water main work. Assuming that stays the same and increasing it by 126%, that would bring us up for an additional $12.6 million for pavement, which would be levy supported borrowing, an additional $6.3 million in sanitary sewer, which is covered by the sanitary charges, an additional $14.2 million in storm sewer, which is covered by our stormwater user fees, and an additional $5 million for water main, which would be covered by the water rates. That's just gross construction costs. We also have to take into consideration inspection, construction administration, and design services. We would have to subcontract that out, or we would have to hire additional staff in construction to oversee the contract administration and design. We're estimating construction, admin, and inspection to be just a little bit more than an additional 1.8 million per year. And design, we took a look at the Country Club Road project, being a recent project that we put out for consultant design. That project is about 4,000 feet long, and the cost to do the design was about $233,000. Prorating that out over the almost 40,500 additional feet in the project, we're looking at an additional $2.3 million or so in design services. So the total estimated cost for the year, each year, to go up from our current level up to 3% is estimated to be somewhere in the neighborhood of about $40 million.
Now, Steve, I'm going to stop it here, I guess, because in our previous discussions, and I know you don't have the numbers, but we were always over 2%. We were always at 2.1. I've used it in my flyers because I've asked staff, where are we? And we're at 2.2, somewhere in there. So to go up from 1.3 to 3% is going to be a dramatic hit. But when we use the other number, I don't know what we're baselining it off of. I think you're going to see different amounts, obviously. So I'm not really prepared to talk about it based on the 1.35%. I don't know if we need to go back and find out why we were saying percent.
We can definitely bring this back at the next meeting.
I think that might be needed, just because I think on baseline, so it's, we're not tripling the amount, we're adding a 0.7% more to get it to 3, and that's going to drastically change those numbers.
Right, you're assuming we're going from about a 2.1, 2.2 up to a 3%. We're probably looking at an additional 20 million or so per year.
Yeah, and that's, not that's a large amount, but if we could get those statistics, I think that would give us something actual to talk about.
Sounds good.
I know other, like, De Pere's, 3.5%, whatever they do. If other municipalities can do it, there's no reason we can't. Probably one of the number one things we hear is get the roads done. So if we can show in our planning that we're doing right now that we're trying to do more every year, it doesn't have to, 1% in 1 year. If it goes up 0.1% or 0.2 every year for 5 years, that's progress. It shows we're taking it seriously. But I don't know, what does the committee think?
Motion to hold.
Okay, yeah, I think we need the better numbers. There's a motion by Alder Scannell,
I'll second.
second by Alder Gerlach. Yeah, Steve, if you could, look back and see what we based those numbers off of, because I know I've used it in my newsletter many times that were 2.2 or 3, something like that. And then base our numbers off of that. I'd appreciate it. And sorry, Nancy, I didn't get to talk unless you wanted to add something in before we refer it.
No, I think that, I can work with Steve too. We were just estimating if we had to put the amount of water main replacements up to what the streets were, that we'd have about a 25 to 30% rate increase, is what I emailed you, is what we calculated. Because we just did like a 4% rate increase. We got about $800,000 additional revenue. So we'd have to get it up there to do that. I know and I think it would be nice if Steve and I could do the plan and, and be able to get up there, because we do. Our whole goal is to replace more infrastructure, and we certainly want to work with them to try to accomplish that. There's some national infrastructure bills that might be coming down that might be able to help us. And, so we got to take advantage of those if they do come and stuff. So I'll be talking really closely with Steve too. So
Okay. Yeah, if you could talk over the next week or two, and that would be excellent.
Great.
Appreciate it, Nancy.
You
I
bet.
like your back. Any other questions from the committee?
It's up in Crivets. I did a waterfall tour last fall, so
Very relaxing.
thank you. Yeah.
All right, I appreciate you coming today. All right, well, if there's no
You
other
bet.
comments, then those in favor of referring this to staff,
Holding.
Aye.
holding
Aye.
holding this item for 2 weeks, yeah, so we can correct the numbers and work with Nancy. All right, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Thanks, Steve, I appreciate it. Thanks, Nancy. And number 4, report of the purchasing manager with notifications of purchase of pumps for East Shore Drive Lift Station totaling $25,598. Sole source document attached. Purchase made to meet time deadlines with report out to committee after the fact.
Okay, so included in the packet is a report from the purchasing agent, Calvin Winters. And in there are a number of pieces of information. First of which is Calvin's summary document. Then there is the request of approval for a no substitute. As we've told you on a number of these types of purchases in the past, Our utility section has settled on the Flight brand of pumps as a standard for both our sanitary and storm lift stations. This has been through many years of evaluation and utilization. The Flight pumps are a long-term dependable piece of equipment. And we standardized on a single manufacturer, both from a ease of maintenance perspective for routine maintenance that our staff has to do. They're familiar with a pump manufacturer, so it increases the efficiency of staff when they have to diagnose and or maintain one of these pumps in the field. Flight is a local company. I believe they're down in, our representative is down in the Milwaukee area, so we get immediate turnaround if it's a major problem where we have to pull the pump and send it in. So that's why we standardize on the Flight. Purchasing department concurs with our recommendation on that. So we did have a pump that needed to be replaced. There was a timeliness aspect to that, which Mr. Winters refers to in his document. So we picked the two submersible pumps up and are reporting them out at this time as purchasing department gave us the authorization to acquire those pumps to meet the need.
Okay. And just approving something already done. So I don't know if there's any
Motion to
questions.
receive and place on file.
Yes.
Second.
Motion by Alder Scannell, second by Alder Burnett to receive and place on file. Any questions? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. 5 is a report of the contract clerk's office conference room.
And this was one that we had talked to you about at the last meeting and got concurrence to award this one at a staff level because of the timeliness on it. We were utilizing, I believe this is still utilizing some of that election money. So I apologize, it's not in the.
Alder Burnett?
Yeah, Director Grenier, we were emailed the bid. I think it was 38,000. Only one bid was received or one was accepted. I believe at the last meeting, we were told the budget would be like 20,000. So I'm a little alarmed to see 38,000, especially with a single bid. But from what I understand, you are correct. 2 weeks ago, Clerk Jeffries indicated the funds were CT, the Center for Tech and Civic Life grant. So as far as one bid over than what we wanted, it's money that the city had received from an outside source. So although I'm concerned about one bid and it almost double what the cost was, we were told last week or 2 weeks ago, money that is not coming out of our levy. So I'm just wondering can you give us a little more background on that bid?
I wish I had answers. They're just, all I can figure is it was specialty construction. It's not, anytime you do a rehab as opposed to new construction, you're going to pay a premium. And it could be a function of time of year. It could be a function of a combination of the time of the year and the deadlines for getting the work completed. It could have something to do with work in a public facility. There's any number of these factors that cause these smaller contractors, and that's what we're looking at, is more of a remodeling type contractor as opposed to a building contractor to come in. There's all kinds of these things that cause these guys to shy away from not wanting to submit a bid. And then it's not altogether uncommon that we see on small projects like this, small scope projects. Sometimes the contractors make sure that they've got some insulation in that bid just in case.
I mean, the merits of the project, no problem. Clerk Jeffries explained it. It makes sense. It's going to help with counting ballots or however she explained it. It made a lot of sense. That would be my concern. but
Yeah, essentially, they're creating a storage room for all of
yeah,
the equipment.
right, that's what it was.
Yes.
Any other questions from committee?
Motion to receive and place, oh, no.
Alder Gaylor?
I want to know if there would be any harm done if we were to hold this and get some answers to those questions that Alder Brunette brought up.
Well, we can definitely get the answers, but we've already awarded the contract.
Okay, yeah, this is just a report.
It's just that I just hate to add on to this election CTCL story, and the bid went from, the estimate went from $20,000 to $38,000. That's, I just don't like it. I hear what Alder Brunette is saying. It's just kind of a real surprise, but nothing we can do, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So, yeah, before I remember that we had giving the authority on the bid to Public Works, I was going to recommend forwarding on to council with no recommendation and pulling it there, but I think Alder Scannell, you were going to make a motion to receive and place on file. If you don't want, yeah, I think I'd second that motion.
Yeah, then Alder Scannell, you made the motion to receive and place on file. Alder Burnett seconded it. Any discussion? Yeah, it's been awarded already, and obviously it's from private funds, and we had the amount and staff fine with it, so.
Yeah.
And
I
I did just get some information from Assistant Director Burnett. He said 3 things contributed to lack of bidders and the cost being substantially higher than what we were expecting. Building material costs, especially this type of building material, are going up. So that may have been higher than what we were using for the original estimate. There was a very tight time frame associated with the construction, and the money has to be spent by a certain date under the conditions of that grant. So when you compress timeframes and things like that, that's when guys are going to have to either work overtime or bring additional staff in that they hadn't anticipated. So that definitely could have, we're talking about almost a 50% increase over the original estimate. That would definitely explain it.
This is for Lynn. No advisors are coming in to oversee the work.
Me, I'm
Just kind
going.
of laughing. As for Randy then, okay. All right, well, we have a motion and a second to receive and place on file. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. And look at that, we're already on the report of was taken by Department of Public Works. A, granting of licenses, sidewalk builder. A, Brian's Quality Concrete. B, Brian McEwen, NEW Concrete. D, Precision Flat Work. Those are all licenses granted. Any questions? Nope. Receive and place on file.
Motion to, well, is this just a review or to approve?
We
These were already granted.
we went on to the granting of licenses. We're going to have to go back and pick up the 2 contracts.
I'll just make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion to
Second.
approve. Second by Alder Gillock. Those in
Aye.
favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Now, Steve, what were you mentioning? We had to go back for something?
We got to go back for item 6. We skipped over the award of 2 contracts. We took item 5, which was the report of the clerk.
My agenda goes 576. Yeah, mine goes 576. I didn't even notice that. Yeah, sure. All right, number 6, consideration of possible action on the review and award of the following contracts. A is ramps 221, parking ramp repairs, and B is resurfacing. So A, ramps. Ramp it up.
Okay, ramps 2-21. This is one that we've talked about in previous years, where Central Restoration has largely been the sole bidder. This year, for whatever reason, we did get 3 bidders, which is good to see. Low responsive bidder was Ram Construction Services of Minnesota, LLC, in the amount of $384,979.50. This is funded by the parking utility. So this comes out of our operating funds there. So we are good with that. So that staff's recommendation would be to award to Ram Construction in the amount of $384,979.50.
Motion to approve the award
Second,
for the blue ribbon.
Motion by Elder Scannell, second by Elder Gerlach to award as stated by Director Grenier. Any discussions? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Resurfacing 1-21, this is a two-part contract. Part A is pavement repairs, curb and gutter, sidewalks that need to be completed prior to doing the actual asphalt resurfacing each year. And then the Part B is the asphalt contract itself. For Part A, we received 3 bids: Martell Construction, Fisher Ullman, and Summers. All 3 contractors we've worked with in the past. All 3 are very good. Martell Construction here in Green Bay being the low responsible bidder in the amount of $481,990. For the asphalt portion, MCC and Northeast Asphalt, again, 2 contractors we have worked with extensively in the past and are satisfied with the work out of both. MCC Incorporated being the low responsible bidder in the amount of $1,449,949.65. Staff recommends award of contract to the low responsible bidder for each part.
Motion to approve.
All right, motion by Elder Scannell,
Second.
second by Elder Burnett to Martell Construction and MCC Inc., the low responsive bidders, responsible. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Well, we can't be on informational already, can we?
Absolutely.
Inform us.
Just one item that I have for you tonight under director's report. Operations manager Chris Pierlot has been updating daily the information relative to spring yard waste collections and what our status is. We are reaching between 800 and 2,000 people a day with that communication. So folks are definitely tuning in. We're averaging about 13 to 1,700 most days. So folks are definitely keeping an eye on what's going on. We do hear a lot of positive feedback from the community on that, knowing approximately, within a day or two, when they might be able to expect somebody coming through their neighborhood. Status update as of this morning on the east side of the city, we had 2 rounds complete and we were approximately 60% through round 3. West side of the city, 2 rounds complete and approximately 50% complete with round 3. Reports coming back from staff in the field just indicating there's substantially more more material placed out for construction on the west side than there had been on the east side, but the east side is starting to catch up. So I think with those couple of warm days we had a couple of weeks ago, folks on the west side took the opportunity to go out and get a little exercise in the yard, and maybe some of the east siders were just kicking back and relaxing, and now they're having to catch up to the west side folks.
And Steve, I will say overall an excellent job. I haven't had any complaints. I had 2 queries about the city moving a brush pile into the street and then it not being picked up till the next day. I don't know if we just got way ahead of ourselves or if maybe the second crew just missed when they came along. But that's, like I said, a flyer, but just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, every now and then the pole crew gets a little bit ahead of the scooping crew, and that'll happen.
Alder Burnett.
Yeah, and Director Grenier, they are incredibly efficient. It's a beautiful thing to watch. I'll wake up in the morning and my leaves will be in the street, and then they're just zipping, and it's just you do a really good job with that. One thing I just asked though, and I don't know if you'll get to this in your director's report, but when you were gone, I had engaged with your lot about a constituent idea about fall loose leaf collection. I don't know if you had a chance to review that at a staff level, but if you could just have him give me a call or send me an email.
I believe that will be going on to the next agenda. Mr. Pierlot actually has been working on a report on that.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you. He's efficient as well. You got an efficient bunch there.
I will tell you,
That-
I've mentioned it in the past, and, you know, director's report is as good a place as any to mention it again. I have spent more time away from work due to this surgery than I have in my prior 30 years of employment combined, and probably more than double on this surgery. So I was very concerned. I don't spend a lot of time outside the office. I'm there quite a bit. And that was the biggest concern I had going in to have the surgery done, was I was not going to be available. I was not going to be around. I brag about my staff all the time, and I'm going to take this opportunity to do the same. Especially my management staff has done a phenomenal job stepping in and helping to not only plug the gaps, but keep things running very, very efficiently. So I'm very, very pleased. Jim Burnett, who's in the meeting with us, Matt Heckenleibel in the Utilities Division, Chris Pierlot heading up Operations Division, and the Assistant City Engineers, and then the superintendents over in Operations Division. They've all been doing a fantastic job, and things have just continued to chug along. Up until this week, when I've had the opportunity, I've checked in when I could. It hasn't been as frequently as I had hoped, but yeah, the staff deserves a lot of that credit. They really have stepped up and done a fantastic job.
I'll second that.
Yeah, sure.
Anything else, Steve, you needed to add under director's report? Any questions?
No, sir.
Motion received, place on file.
Second.
Motion by Alder Scannell, second by Alder Burnett to receive and place on file. Next meeting, May 12th.
We didn't vote on that.
Motion
Oh.
to adjourn.
Next Improvement and Service Committee is
We didn't
scheduled for May
vote
12th.
on the
We didn't
motion.
vote on the receive and place.
Motion.
Oh, you did? Okay, those in favor of receiving, place on file?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that carries.
Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn, Alder Burnett, Alder Scannell. In favor?
Aye.
All right,
Bye.
Bye.
good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, you too.
Good to see you, Steve.
You too.
Good job.